So I had somebody ask me about their sitting. They were saying that when they're riding, they have a hard time sitting deep in their saddle, and I think that's something that we come across a lot as riders. And if you think about the dynamics of it, we can really further break it down so that it becomes easier for our body to sit, because we really have to create the muscle patterns, balance anything out that's wrong, stretch the muscles that need to be strengthened, the ones that are weak, in order to be able to sit better. Because it's one thing to think, I'm gonna go in there and I'm gonna sit better this time, and it's another for your body to actually be able to do it. So first of all, let's think about it. When we're riding, right? My legs are will be a little more down, right? Riding. When I'm going towards my barrels or whatever, I wanna be a little bit more forward, a little bit more driving. But then when I get there, I wanna be able to sit. So that actually, some people sit a little bit more upright, and other people kind of crouch a little more. But bottom line is you basically want to be able to take your hips from either a forward driving position or a more upright position, but you want to be able to go from a forward to a back to sit and get yourself seated better. But you still want to be able to have a strong core, because a lot of people end up getting tipped forward, and when you're tipped forward, then your feet kind of come back, and then you're out of balance, and then you also come out of square. So again, from the front, you're going to be riding along, knees down. Gonna have to excuse my feet there. But you're gonna be kind of riding, and you're gonna want to be able to sit. So that sit, whether with still a little bit of forward motion, or that sit, you still have to be able to come here, but you also gotta be able to hold yourself up right here. So we'll do it just from a standing position, and you're riding, and you want to be able to sit. So what does that mean to us? That means that there's a whole myriad of things that our body has to be able to do. For one, a lot of people are too tight in their pectoral muscles here, and they're weak in their back. So what happens is you got a forward rolled shoulder, and you don't have the back strength here, so you can't pull yourself kind of back upright this way, right? So then you're riding, and then there's not the strength here to kind of bring yourself back a little bit, right? Moving further on down the line, we got our core. A lot of people don't have a lot of core strength to stabilize themselves there. So as I'm here, right, I'm here, and I want to be able to tip. I want to be able to bend this core in. That also corresponds with your back. So typically we have people, and we, as women, we have this anterior pelvic tilt, where we kind of go like this. So then we're stretched out here, which creates a little bit of a pooch, and then we're over tight here. So then your back can actually lengthen as your core pulls you in to pull those hips. Okay, on top of that, when we have that anterior pelvic tilt, or even we're just normal human beings, a lot of sitting, we have an over tight hip flexor. So that hip flexor won't release in order for us to curl that butt under you and drive those sit bones down into there. So then that's kind of too tight, so we go over tightness, and typically you're tight all the way down your front of your legs. The back of it too, your glute has to be active and be able to come in, and actually help pull that hip. Same thing as your hamstrings do as well. And then further on down the line, when we're riding in our stirrups, if you have too tight of calves, they're gonna be pulled forward. Now I'm not saying don't ride with your toes down, I'm saying you have to be able to use them to kind of put the brakes on as you're coming in, right? So if your calves are too tight, that could be another problem. So like I said, there's a whole myriad of things going on from the top to the bottom in us as riders that we kind of need to address. So I'm going to go over a few of. So my goal is kind of to have this program, a lot of my program that you can do from anywhere. So there's going to be a lot of body weight type of thing, and then some stretching in this. So if we have over tight pectoral muscles, which most of us do, because if you look at us from the side, you should be able to take your arms up, bring them all the way over, and that's where you actually should land. Even I've got forward rolled shoulders, a lot of us do. Desk job, riding, driving, whatever, it all pulls everything in here. So in order to work on stretching that out, you can just bring your arms up and bring them back over behind you, and you can do some arm circles, really get that chest stretched out like that. Another thing you can do, take your arm, put it against a wall, shoulder level, kind of turn away from it. Here, walk away. Other chest openers, things like, taking your arms, stretch, chest up to the sky, you can look back a little, Or if you got a stability ball or something, another good thing to do is just to kind of take it, bring your arms up overhead and just let it hang and just open your chest up there. Kind of move your hands back and forth. Just kind of really open up that chest. So that's going to be the opening. Now, strength-wise, we need to strengthen back in here, right? So a lot of strengthening back in there comes from rowing type motions. So whether you come here and you just do a body weight and just squeeze your shoulder blades together. If you're here, you can just do the same thing, squeeze. So here I'm really focusing on back here, squeezing those shoulder blades together. You can also take a weight, or like if I didn't have a weight, something simple I can do is just single arm rows. I'm just going to put the water bottle right here. I'm going to come here and I'm going to row. So that's just strengthening and opening, strengthening that back while opening the chest. Okay, let's go to some core strength. So we're going to go with a little bit of a lengthen and a little bit of a strengthen again. So some of my favorite things, I would recommend a mat for this one, but if you want to get that ability to move your spine and stuff, you're going to have to stretch out a little bit here. So we'll just start with a little, basic here. Don't let your shoulders into your ears, get them upright. If you can't do it from there, you can get your arms down and just kind of here. You just want to be able to work towards stretching yourself out there. So that's creating some spinal flexion by loosening your abs. Another thing you can do that's a really great deal is use your foam roller. You can start kind of at the top of your spine, and you can kind of bring your arms overhead, or you can just, wherever's comfortable, and then just start rolling down your spine. Now, I've got a really tight spot right there, which explains a lot. So I'm just going to kind of hang there, and I can kind of just roll over and just start getting some extension in there. Be careful when you're doing this. And I'm just going to hang out here for a while until my back would release, because it really doesn't want to. You can see how tight I am here. My back should be able to release through there. You can just kind of foam roll that lower back and get it really loosened up and stuff. This is called like thoracic spine extension. Another thing you do, just here, arms overhead, reach, open it up, close, reach, open, close. Don't go past where your body can actually do it. So then strengthening, if you want to strengthen that core, gosh, everything we do requires our core. So I just tell people first, you really want to get good at activating that core, so you want to be able to draw your belly button into your spine, no matter what you do, and then kind of pull your hips up here so that you're not protruding. So we do a lot of practice with that, with other things in some of my courses, but basically, very, very starter, lay on the floor, put your feet underneath you, see how much gap you have in your low back. You want to be able to push that low back into the floor, so pull your belly button into your spine and hold it. This is a very elementary place to start, just by holding it. Hold it in there. And then you can release. So just blow all your out. Squeeze and release. A lot of people have a hard time doing crunches and those kind of things. That's another really important thing with working our abdominal muscles, but you're not going to use anything other than your abdominal muscle. You're going to get really good first at pulling this low back in the floor. Then you want to know that it stays stuck there. Stuck to there, and then you're just going to take a small, little crunch. Same thing with your reverse crunch. So my low back comes off the floor there, so I already know that that's a bit of an issue for me. So I need to work on that a little bit more. For me, that's a bit of loosening. So I'm just going to kind of go here, and I'm just going to start here where I can put my low back in the floor. I'm going to push up to the sky, just a small little motion. Another thing that you can do, strengthening your core muscle, that's always really good, is just your typical shoulder, elbow plank. Pull, hollow body position. So I'm not flat or sagging, I want to be holding. Glutes, everything tight. Okay, let's hit a little bit on the low body. That's kind of a tough one because there's so many components to it. So, as riders, we typically have very tight inner thighs. So, going to our lengthening portion, take your foam roller, put it at the base of your knee. You're basically just going to start at the top of your knee, find a sore spot, hang there till it disappears, kind of dissipates. This is self-care. If you find a spot and you really want to get deeper, you can just kind of move your leg back and forth. So what people don't know is how much our inner thigh muscles are actually connected to our pelvis and our hips and everything. So it's super, super important to help with our knees, help with hip pain, help with low back pain, and help with the ability to sit better by addressing these inner thighs. So you'll do that to both sides. Then, another good thing, you definitely want to kind of stretch those inner thighs. So you can kind of stretch them any way that you can kind of get that stretch down the inside of your leg. So that's kind of a little bit with your inner thigh. We're not going to work as riders on strengthening the inner thighs that much because they're usually pretty strong. You're going to want to strengthen your outer, so that can be like your standing legs here. Get that motion back in there. Another thing you can do that's really good for your hip joint is just these opening circles as well. You can put a band around your ankles, work on that outer thigh. And there's a million other things in my other programs that also have it as well. Quads. If you pick up your foot and your quad's tight, so you want to know that your knee is not forward, it's not backwards, it's right in line, and then your hips are tucked. Stretch the front of that quad. Another good deal as far as, like I said, when we're riding and everything here is kind of shorter, everything here is kind of lengthened. When we sit, we kind of got to be able to shorten everything back here, and everything here has to kind of release. Hopefully that makes sense. So you're going to be riding, everything is tight through the front of your body. You've got to strengthen the whole back in order to be able to sit better. So then we talk about, so that would be some inner thigh stretches. Then let's talk about glutes. So my favorite one, you guys always see it, it's always the glute bridge. So just on your back, drive your hips up to the sky, squeeze your glutes at the top. Another thing you can think about what we're doing as riders is getting a lower squat. So you want to be able to sit down and stay upright, because the lower your squat you can go, the better. That it's going to help you more as far as your riding goes. So you just kind of work on getting a lower squat. So this isn't as much of a stronger one, it's just lower. If you find you have trouble at the bottom of your squat, you can just kind of sit, press your knees out. You might only be here for now, that's fine. Just kind of work on getting that depth down there. I have an entire squat mobility one I did in my jeans, if you saw that one or not. Strengthening your hamstrings, the glute bridges will help that as well. Final one I want to move down to is just calves. A lot of people, we don't address our calves like we should. And because we're on them all the time, they're extremely, extremely strong, but they're usually tight. So you step up against a wall, start stretching into them that way. You can take your foot here and you can just kind of rock into it to the degree you can. And then you can take your foam roller, and this is one of the best ones you can probably do, and just kind of start rolling in there. When you find one, just kind of work it back and forth. Wait till that trigger point releases. So you definitely want to improve your ankle flexion as well. So hopefully that gives you guys a few little things to do. You got to think about every body is different, but we also have the same kind of movement patterns and problems. So like I said, almost everybody you walk out on the street now and you start noticing they got forward rolled shoulders, kind of protruding abdomen, and a overextended hips, which sets us up perfectly for riding, getting too far forward as we're riding, because once again, if I'm riding in a riding position and my normal posture is forward rolled shoulders, protruding head, and a slightly, anterior pelvic tilt here, well, that sets me up. I mean, you'll even see people, and even if they're like this, there's very few people don't have a forward rolled shoulder to some degree or another. It's very tough for a lot of people to not have that, really upright chest. And I also see it a lot with people who lack confidence. So if you lack confidence, you're kind of closed off. So if you kind of even just start working on your posture, getting yourself upright, but make sure that when you're upright, you're not doing this. Make sure you're tucking. That's going to work on your lower abs as well. So you're going to be forward and upright, and we're going to kind of strive for that. In order to get that, we have to lengthen typically everything up front, and we have to strengthen everything behind. So then you should be able to be riding, sit, because you got that strength to come back, and if you have to, you can come back a little bit more, because you actually have the strength in the back of your body to do it, and you have the suppleness in the front. So hopefully that helps.